Kratos?
How do you know of me?
You're the ghost of Sparta. Everyone knows who you are. Everyone is afraid of you.
There are reasons for that.
I'm not afraid of you.
It is good you're not afraid, child. Fear is a heavy burden.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. 2026 Summer Game Fest has just ended and the internet is abuzz with conversations and debates about just who gave the worst possible presentation. And I think that is still pretty much up in the air. Of course, as usual, you know, there are already dozens of videos already covering the how, you know, abysmal the showcase was and why in what is supposedly one of the biggest presentations of the year in gaming, all we've really gotten are remakes or a plethora of gaming for the female empowerment audience. And the most exciting thing coming out of the showcase was a Spyro game. That's where we're at with the gaming. A lot of cinematics, very little actual gameplay being shown. It's not looking good, and to be honest, I think we're at the point now where we're heading into Hollywood territory where it doesn't feel as though we need a showcase like this every year. I think eventually this should go down to, and it's the same thing for the Game Awards as well. I think we need to have these every 5 years now, and not every year. Well, maybe not 5 years, maybe every 2 to 3 years, but definitely not every year, right? And part of the reason for that, and again, as I said, you know, the Hollywood comparison, it's the same thing where they've just give out Oscars to anything whatsoever, however undeserving it may be, and gaming is becoming the same thing because the quality of what we're getting has now just declined, right? And people are losing interest in what's being showcased. So that is what the gaming showcase has now become known for. Advertisements, Hollywood elites showing up, and so on. But there are enough videos covering that. As usual for this channel, what I like to focus on is, you know, are the things that no one is actually talking about. And so I questioned whether I should make this video or not, because a lot of, you know, there's going to be a lot of overlap with things that other content creators have already created. But one of the things that stood out to me during the discussions that were happening online following the Summer Game Fest is the revisionist history when it comes to video game characters. This was most notably in the conversation surrounding godofwarlaufey, and so I felt that was, you know, something that not a lot of people were actually focusing on, but it's very much relevant to the debate that was happening online. Now, this is something that has been ongoing for years, right? And during this discussion where the backlash that Santa Monica Studios received for presenting a God of War game without God of War, the argument that a lot of people have made accurately is that this is a game for Kratos, and it should be for Kratos and no one else. And those in favor of God of warlaufey, their counter argument would be that the God of War 2018 game, the Norse mythology, the writer said this about Faye, and so that's justification for her getting her own game. And that stood out to me because it's something that I've heard before. I mean, for other reasons. It's that, okay, Kratos has been around for a decade or more before 2018, so why are you referencing a 2018 game when the character has existed long before that? And that those games, those early games, that is the template for who the character is. So why are you referencing a 2018 version of the character? So that stood out to me. But then there was it occurred to me that this is an argument that I've heard before, and then I thought back to the 007 First Light conversations. And let's be clear here, the game is underperforming currently. 2.7 million is not that's an underperforming AAA title, particularly one with a Bond name attached to it. It's underperforming. But I also recalled hearing that very same rhetoric during those debates from the same crowd, most likely, where a lot of the criticisms that the game received was that what was presented in First Light was a bastardization of the source material. And those who made the same counter arguments that they're making for Fee now, they would point to Daniel Craig's Bond films, or even Pierce Brosnan's Bond films, and say this happened in these films, therefore, and these changes happened in these films as well. The most frustrating change for me was in Brosnan's Bond, where they swapped M, who was a man, Miles Messervy, Vice Admiral, in the source material and the early Bond films, and they swapped him for a woman, Judi Dench. And those people would point to those films and say, this change happened here, so it's justification for it being in the game now. And I would think to myself, all right, Bond existed for several decades prior to that. There are books, there are novels, there is a source material. Why are you focusing on these films that only came out in recent years as if they override the source material? And that is the crux of the discussion. This era that we've now embarked on, where the newer reimagined version of these characters are being referenced as source material versus the author or the original creator's intent for these characters. So much of this can be summed up by recency bias, which we're all guilty of on some level, right? But there is something a bit more sinister behind it. And nowhere has it been more evident than, Amazon MGM Studios' announcement for the Kratos streaming series, TV series. And you'll note that they've chosen to use Norse Kratos versus Greek version, in large part because they are ashamed of Kratos, they are ashamed of masculinity, and so they've opted to use this character, this version of him as the baseline. And again, these companies have entire departments dedicated to manipulating public perception of these IPs and how the public sees them. So this is no coincidence, right? But they've recognized that the audience now has a short attention span. The news cycle is very short, and so it's very easy for them to weaponize your nostalgia and reframe the character in the way that is most, profitable to them and more palatable to, let's be fair here, to a female audience, because that is why they often try to tone down these characters, these male characters, to be as inoffensive as possible. And this is something that, again, I recognize with the 007 First Light game, because so many people that I had the conversation with had no idea that they had no knowledge of Bond beyond the 2000s. It was as if there's a cutoff point for a lot of the modern audience where they lack knowledge and they're not seeking out information that they don't have. And so they come to the conversation, they come to the debate very misinformed or uninformed about these characters. I've spoken to people, who had no idea that Bond and Moneypenny had a flirtatious relationship, and so to them, the version that we received in First Light was good. For some reason, her constantly wagging her finger at Bond and chastising him for being Bond. That is not their relationship. Most of them had no idea that Bond and M had this mentor-mentee relationship.
Any comments, 007?
I disagree, sir. I've used the Beretta for 10 years.
I've never missed with a jet.
Yeah, maybe not, but it jammed on your last job and you spent 6 months in hospital in consequence. If you carry a 00 number, it means you're licensed to kill, not get killed. And another thing, since I've been head of MI7, there's been a 40% drop in 00 operative casualties, and I want it to stay that way. You'll carry the water.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Any questions, 007?
No, sir.
All right, then. Best of luck.
Thank you, sir.
.007,
Sir?
just leave the Beretta.
And that's in large part because of M's stature. He was a decorated officer who was in the field, had experience, and so Bond respected him dearly. But how can that exist now with this Indian woman that now masquerades as M? She has no field experience. She's not decorated. Even if they try to do this thing where they give her all these honors and so on, we will know that this is not someone capable in the field because, again, men and women are different. It is physically not going to be possible. So that they've already tarnished that relationship between M and Bond. And these people didn't know that that relationship existed. And far worse, in my mind, they don't understand how important that relationship is. But again, as I've said before, oftentimes the goal is to remove these male authority figures to make it a lot more easy to bring in these additional inclusivity checkpoints that they need to have. And it's not just limited to video games, right? We're even seeing this happen it has been happening, and it has contributed to the decline in Hollywood and the film industry, which is now dying as a result of it. But there was a recent Mortal Kombat 2 movie, right, where they made a number of changes. And during that debate, a lot of the criticism that the movie received was Liu Kang being sidelined, the movie promoting Johnny Cage only to push him to the side to make it Kitana's story. And then the people who come in defense of that movie, again, the same people who argue in favor of First Light and God of Warlaufey, it's the same group. They will come with their counter argument to say that this was Kitana's arc in Mortal Kombat 11. And you think to yourself, okay, there are 10 games prior to that and movies where Liu Kang is the ultimate representation of good, and he goes up against the ultimate representation of evil, which is either Shang Tsung or Shao Kahn, but Liu Kang should be the one in that position. But again, their knowledge of the character and the lore and the story is only represented by recent events. They have no knowledge of the source material or any history that leads up to this. It's only what is recent and current in their mind. They know social media has told them that this is the thing that they need to rally behind, and so they do it without question. It would be humorous if it wasn't destroying the very industries that we love and the stories that we love, more importantly. So this is something that we need to be aware of when we consume the media that we're receiving now, whether it's film, TV, video games. It's that there is a concentrated effort to revise, reimagine all these characters, lore, IP. Typically, it's the male one. It's the male IPs. There's an effort to rewrite history, to remake those characters into something that they were not. But as usual, I like to see, the audience holds all the power in whether these changes fail or succeed. I'm a huge advocate of that. I do believe these things exist because we allow it, or gamers allow it. I don't say we. I do my part in not buying these things, and I think I've heard other streamers make this claim as well, is that it's a slippery slope, and God of War 2018 was where this started, And if the crowd that the supposedly anti-woke crowd, if they had pushed back on God of War 2018 when Faye was introduced in the way that she was introduced, we would not have gotten here, right? When you read or the characters in that game tell you that Faye was this badass that went toe to toe with Thor, that should have immediately told you that something this is not correct, this is not right, we reject this. That should have been the response. But you accepted it, and so the studio took that as permission to say we can carry on. They're perfectly fine with it. And I would go a step further, and this is one of the reasons why I don't get a whole lot of support from the gaming crowd, because I do hold them responsible. And I think this idea that we need female characters to be these badasses, I think that is part of the problem. These people who claim to love Greek Kratos, even those people, and recognize that Kratos went on a war path because of what happened to his wife, his very feminine wife. But at the same time, they don't advocate for Kratos to have someone feminine by his side. Instead, they're celebrating this girl boss, rather than, okay, to maybe honor her memory in some way, we need to have more feminine characters like her, and more relationships like the ones Kratos had with his wife and child. We're not seeing a lot of people advocating for those types of female characters. And I would challenge you to list a single feminine character that has been in gaming for the past 10 or 20 years. All of the female characters, whether it's Princess Peach, Zelda, they've all become Fae characters. They've all changed from very feminine princesses to now girl bosses. And a lot of that is because of your acceptance of these badass characters like Faye. So when you see a game like God of War 2018 and they're describing this character who is not a mother or a stay-at-home mom, she's not taking care of Kratos, she's not taking care of Atreus, what is she doing? Or she's out fighting Thor. Why would she be doing that versus taking care of her family? We don't see a lot of gamers advocating for more of those feminine women in the games, and you are part of that problem. You are creating your own suffering. You are contributing to the creation of characters like Faye to compete with the men that you're seeing now. And so I hold gamers responsible for that, because they advocate for a lot of these characters. And I know the Tifa lovers are out there, but I put you guys in the same camp. I'm sorry, but we don't need these girl boss characters who are with masculine traits. We don't. We need less of that. We need a lot less of that, and we need to get back to the norm, which is what helped create these characters and these stories that we love, which is, yes, Kratos is the lead, he's the hero, and his wife should be in a supporting role, taking care of the family and children. And as I've said, as humorous as it is, we're the idea that they're propping up Faye as this badass character, and yet somehow Atreus turned out to be a mess when you have two masculine parents in the home, because Kratos is supposed to be the masculine character, but apparently she's also masculine. And how do you end up with the Atreus character that we have, who knows nothing, he's helpless? Yeah, it just makes no sense, from a story perspective, and biologically none whatsoever. So it's a very strange point in time that we've arrived at. But again, as I said, gamers are the ones with the power to course correct, advocate for less of these female empowered and girl boss characters. I don't want to hear about this, oh, these characters are hot. They can be hot at home waiting for Kratos, or being in a more supportive role for the characters. They don't need to be on screen for them to be represented as attractive women in gaming. I've heard this argument so often. It's like, and obviously from people who are being disingenuous, right? But it's so absurd that okay, if we don't have girl boss characters, we won't have an attractive character in the game. No, you can have an attractive character. We've had them for most of gaming history. Right? Zelda was always an attractive character before she became a girl boss. You don't need a character to be a girl boss and taking up swords and fighting to be attractive. But unfortunately, and I blame anime for a lot of this, but unfortunately, it happens simultaneously in the West, with the the bumbling idiot dad in the sitcoms and the strong and empowered mothers and all of that happens simultaneously with anime pushing the same narrative. If you look at the relationship with Chi-Chi and Goku, and the same thing with Winry and Ed in Full Metal Alchemist. It's the same loud wife that is aggressive and hitting them all the time. It's the same derogative, degenerative relationship that was being pushed in both countries, and we are seeing how that plays out. It is not healthy for either society, but it's also not healthy for the stories, because it then creates this situation that we're seeing in Hollywood now, where the stories are not being made for one person or one demographic or another, because it's too busy trying to appeal to everyone, and then it fails. Right? Mortal Kombat 2 failed. He-Man failed for the same exact reason, because again, they are trying to reframe the character being so ashamed of masculinity, and in the He-Man film, the sorcerer tells him that the other heroes before him only relied on muscles, and what sets him apart is his empathy. Right? It's the same story, right, that you see play out, and it's destroyed Hollywood, and it's now chipping away at gaming, because there's no position for games that appeal to men and games that appeal to women. There's no place for those things to exist. And again, as I said, gamers, in my mind, hold a large part of the responsibility for that, because when these studios make these changes and present these ideas, you have the responsibility to completely and utterly reject them. Do not fall into this camp of it's not a big deal, the change is only minor. If it was minor, it wouldn't need to be changed in the first place. Right? Do not fall into that camp of accepting the bare minimum. We're seeing that happen with this Tomb Raider as well, where they've made the outfit a bit more accurate, but at the same time they're trying to negotiate a middle ground by lowering Laura's sexuality to somewhat. She still looks like an Indian woman as well. She doesn't look British in my mind, and so they're still making the changes, but they're giving gamers some fan service to say, okay, we've done what you've asked. Begrudgingly they're doing it, and it's begrudgingly, because all the interviews and the marketing we're hearing coming out of this is saying the exact opposite, right? The voice actress for Laura, as in her interview, said that the character is not, it's not for men, it's also for women and gays, and so they're trying to rewrite history again. But again, we know Tomb Raider, Lara Croft was made by men for men, but they've had so many reimaginings of Lara that they're doing the same thing I mentioned earlier in the video. They're now pointing to the recent games to see this is the definitive version of Lara Croft, not the original version. This version is, and so we're falling back into the same, in the same trap. And we're going to do that if we accept that game as well. In my mind, and I think the director, the creative director, game director, came out to make some comments as well to say that he's not, or they're not trying to please either side of the culture war. I think I'm paraphrasing, but I believe it was something to that effect, that they're not trying to please either side of the culture war. But you should be trying to please a particular audience, maybe not necessarily the culture war, but you should be trying to please the male audience, because they are the ones buying Lara Croft Tomb Raider, they are the ones who made the IP what it is. But again, it's more of the same, where they're trying to appeal to both sides of the crowd and make this game for everyone, and they will end up making a game for no one. And honestly, I think, you know, we need to reject that game as well. Whenever you hear these comments coming from the people behind the scenes, it's usually an indication that these themes that they believe in and this rhetoric is going to bleed into the game. There is no way that it does not happen. Do not delude yourself into believing just because she has a more accurate outfit that, you know, we should ignore what the people making the product are saying. What they're saying is, this is what we believe, and if that is what they believe, then it will find its way into the game. We've seen it happen countless times before, right? Let's not fall for it again. I would not recommend buying that game based on those comments alone. That is what we need to do. We cannot, you know, take a step back every time they do the bare minimum and treat that as progress, because it is not. So, you know, as gamers, you have a responsibility. The gaming industry can either improve by voting with your wallet and doing our part.